Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass, episode number 219. In this episode, you're going to hear from Debi Silber. Debi is the founder of the Post-Betrayal Transformation Institute. She's also a holistic psychologist, a health, mindset, and personal development expert. So this episode is so good, we talk all about betrayal. So if you've ever been betrayed in your life, this episode is absolutely for you. Sometimes we hang on to it for years and years after it has occurred, and it isn't healthy, right? It prevents and blocks you from health, work, relationships, confidence, and really the happiness that you want. So stay tuned because I know you're going to want to hear what Debi has to say. But first, before we get there, I got to know, have you signed up for your free coaching call yet? If you haven't heard, I am doing free coaching calls, especially to the Ordinary to Badass podcast listeners, and just 60-minute free coaching call, no pushy sales, no requirement at the end to join or do anything else. I want to get to know the podcast listeners and help you push past any blocks that you're experiencing. So this is going to be epic and it's going to be life-changing. Sign up today, ordinarytobadass.com/coaching. I'll throw the link in the podcast episode notes as well. With that, let's get to the show. Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or badass, I'm so glad you're here. Today's guest is Debi Silber. Debi, thank you so much for being here. Excited to have you on the show.
Excited to have our conversation.
So before we go any further, I have got to ask you, do you consider yourself ordinary or badass?
It's sort of hard to diagnose yourself, but I imagine I'm a badass. I would say yes. Yes, I am.
So have you always felt like a badass, or has it kind of come with time?
No, not at all. It's really because of the journey I've been on. That's exactly why I feel that way now.
And was it one thing that triggered it, or like a series of events that made you feel like a badass?
Yeah, it's actually my 30th year in business, and as life would morph and change, so would business. So here it was. I had a really I started in health and then mindset and then personal development. And then I had a really painful betrayal from my family, thought I did everything I needed to do to heal. And then a few years later, it happened again. This time it was my husband. Anybody who's been through it, you're shocked, you're blindsided, you're devastated. Life as you've known it is no longer. So got him out of the house. And here I was. I had 4 kids, 6 dogs, and a thriving business. And I'm like, okay, something has to change. And I decided that has to be me. So I enrolled in a PhD program in transpersonal psychology, the psychology of transformation, because I was changing so much. I didn't quite understand what was happening. He was too, wasn't ready to look at that. And then it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal, what holds us back, what helps us heal, and what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive. That study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my family, my work, my life.
Can you tell us?
That was the beginning of the badassery.
Nice. Can you tell us more about those discoveries?
Yeah, sure. So originally I was studying betrayal and post-traumatic growth. And if you're unfamiliar with post-traumatic growth, that's like how any crisis, death of a loved one, disease, natural disaster, whatever, leaves you with a new insight, awareness, perspective you didn't have. Like maybe you lose someone you love and you realize life is short, that kind of thing. But I had been through death of a loved one. I'd actually been through disease. But I was like, no, betrayal feels very different, for me. I didn't want to assume it was the same for everybody. So I asked my study participants and I said, if you've been through other traumas, other crises besides betrayal, does it feel different for you? Hands down unanimously. They said, oh my gosh, it's so different. Here's why. because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the whole self is shattered and has to be rebuilt. Think about it: rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. You don't necessarily lose those, or those things don't get shattered in other crises, but they do in betrayal. So it needed its own name, which is now called post-betrayal transformation. That's the complete and total rebuild of your life and yourself after an experience with betrayal. That was the first discovery. Want me to tell you the second?
Yeah.
Sure. So the second discovery was that there's actually a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. It's known as post-betrayal syndrome. And we've had 60,000 people on our site take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz to see to what extent they're struggling. What's really interesting about that quiz is, first of all, we've all heard time heals all wounds. I have the proof when it comes to betrayal. That's not true. There's a question that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust. My betrayal happened 10 years ago. I feel gutted. So we know betrayal is a very different experience that requires a very specific protocol to heal. Do not count on time just to heal it. And we can spot an unhealed betrayal from a mile away, which I'm happy to go over. But every couple of months, I pull the stats from the quiz just to see where people are. Would that help if I shared it?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So now imagine 60,000 plus people, men, women, just about every age, almost every country is represented. Ready? 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant. 94% deal with painful triggers. These are the most common physical symptoms. 71% have low energy, 68% have sleep issues, 63% have extreme fatigue. So you can sleep a whole night, wake up, you're exhausted. That's how you know your adrenals have tanked. 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, maybe you can't hold food down. Later on, you're using food for comfort. 45% have a gut issue, and that's anything from Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea, you name it. The most common mental symptoms: 78% are overwhelmed. 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief. 68% are unable to focus. 64% are in shock. 62% can't concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate. You have a gut issue. You're exhausted. You still have to raise your kids. You still have to work. That's not even the emotional ones. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry. 82% are hurt, 80% have anxiety, 79% are stressed, just a few more. Here's why I wrote the book Trust Again. Ready? 84% have an inability to trust. That one just gets me every time.
That's huge.
67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how. Crazy, right? Here's what's even crazier about it. Those stats I just read isn't necessarily from a recent betrayal. It could be from something that happened decades ago. So here you are, right? Now imagine you have a gut issue and anxiety and sadness and weight issues and whatever from something that happened 10, 20, 30, 40 plus years ago. That person may not know, care, or even remember. And here we are walking around with symptoms. Do you see? I mean, you see how that, it's tragic. And here's the thing, healing is entirely predictable, which gets me to the third discovery. You want me to go over the third one?
Yes, please.
All right. For me, this was the most exciting out of all three. And what we learned was, while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many people do, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome, like I just read, right, to that completely healed place of post-betrayal transformation, we're going to go through 5 now proven predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at each stage. And we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. So healing is entirely predictable. I'm happy to go through the stages if you want.
Yeah, let's go through the stages and then I'll come back and ask questions after that.
Sure. Okay. So it's what we teach within the PBT Institute. It's what all of our coaches are certified in. It's what's mapped out in Trust Again. Here's a distilled version right here. So stage one is like a setup stage. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with everyone was a real heavy lean on the physical and the mental, thinking and doing, and kind of neglecting the emotional and the spiritual, feeling and being. If a table only has 2 legs, easier for that table to topple over, that's us. Stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day. And this is the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. So right here, you've ignited your stress response. You're headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete and total state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot wrap your mind around the information you just learned. Makes no sense. And your worldview has just been shattered. Your worldview is your mental model. It's the rules that govern you, that prevent chaos. Don't go there, trust this person. This is how life works. And in one earth-shattering moment or series of moments, every rule you've ever known is no longer. The bottom is bottomed out, and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. So it's terrifying. But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You grab hold of whatever you could to stay safe and stay alive, right? That's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this experience? Where do I go? Who can I trust? How do I feed my kids? Here's the trap though. Stage 3, by far, hands down, is the most common place to get stuck. Here's why. Once you've figured out how to survive your experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma of where you just came from, we think it's good. We're like, okay, I got this. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4, a stage 5. Transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we start planting roots here. We're not supposed to, but we don't know that. We start planting roots here, and 4 things happen. The first thing is we start getting all these like small self benefits. You get to be right. You get your story. You get a target for your anger. You get someone to blame, right? You don't have to do the hard work of learning to trust again. Can I trust you? Should I trust you? Forget it. I'm not trusting anybody. So you plant deeper roots. You're not supposed to, but you don't know that. And now because you're here longer than you're supposed to be, the mind starts doing things like, well, maybe you deserved it. Maybe you're not that great. Maybe this, maybe that. So you plant deeper roots. And now because these are the thoughts you're thinking, well, this is the energy you're putting out. So like energy attracts like energy. So now you're calling situations and circumstances and relationships towards you to confirm, yep, this is exactly where you belong. So you're in deeper. It gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but you don't know there's anywhere else to go, you resign yourself right here. You're like, well, this stinks, but I better find a way to just be able to get through my day. So right here, you start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, whatever it is for you. And think about it. You do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years beyond. And I can see someone, 20 years out and say that emotional eating you're doing, that numbing in front of the TV, that drinking. Do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they would look at me like I'm crazy. It would have happened 20 years ago. All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I found it like so mind blowing that people would stop at stage 3. So From Hardened to Healed, this is my newest book, is only for stage 3. Trust Again maps out all 5 stages, but everyone is just landing in stage 3. So stage 3ers, I'm coming for you From Hardened to Healed. Because you bothered going through it, you owe it to yourself to move through the stages. Anyway, if you're willing to let go of the small self-benefits, grieve, mourn the loss, bunch of things you need to do, you move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. Just in that decision, you're turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but at least you stopped the massive damage you were creating in stages 2 and stage 3. With stage 4, I use the example of like if you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, apartment, whatever, all your stuff's not there. It's not quite cozy yet, but it's going to be okay. And when that's the way you feel, like that's the mental approach to it, that's the feeling of stage 4. But what's interesting is if you were to move, you don't take everything with you, right? You don't take the things that don't represent who you want to be. And what I found was if your friends weren't there for you, right here, you've outgrown them. You don't take them from stage 3 to stage 4. And people say to me all the time, what the heck? I've had these friends 10, 20, 30 years. Is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. And if they don't rise, they don't come. Very common. And very common right in that one space from 3 to 4. Anyway, when you've settled into this new space, you've made it cozy, you've made it mentally home, you move into the 5th most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal. Self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise, things like that. You didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now you do. Your mind is healing. You're making new rules. You're making new boundaries based on the road you just traveled. And you have a new worldview based on your entire experience. And the 4 legs of the table, in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
Okay, so just a quick recap for those listening, and you can tell me if I got it right or not, but the first is the setup phase, and the second is shock, or dealing with the shock, and then survival instincts is 3rd, and then find and adjust to the new normal is 4th, and then 5th is healing and rebirth.
And a new worldview. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Exactly.
And so what sticks with me is number 3, the survival instinct, and how people are merely just trying to survive. But what is that propels them forward to number 4?
Yeah, and if you want a visual, and this is what I see all the time. It's like, imagine, here you are, you're grabbing onto a trapeze bar, right? You're on stage. This is stage 3. You're holding on for dear life. You can even grab hold onto the bar, headed for stage 4. But what happens is you go nowhere if you don't let go, right? You have to let go of that first bar. And that's the challenge, because we get so many benefits, small self benefits from staying there. And we don't realize it. We have a story, but it's a horrible story. We're getting attention, but it's sympathy. You see what I mean? It's like, so we're getting things, but what happens is we don't, and also the longer we stay, the harder it is to leave, because it just becomes who we are. And then we have our new group of people who are all like the Ain't It Awful Club, and it just keeps us kind of cemented to this space. And the longer we're there, the more we can't even imagine anything other than what we experience. And then we keep going over things and over things and over things, and it cements us in. You need to go over because you need to make sense out of your experience. But what happens is when you do that, and this is a problem I see with so many people in therapy, and I will tell you, I'm a psychologist, but I'm a coach first. The wrong support does more harm than good. We have so many people coming into the PBT Institute with therapy trauma. And I see it. If that therapist is not highly skilled in betrayal, it does more harm than good. There is a place for it, for sure. You need to unload. You need to sort of have a safe support system, of someone who can hear you, But what happens is, do that for too long without a plan to move forward. That's exactly where you'll stay.
Right.
Like, I'll hear someone's story. All of our certified coaches within the PBT Institute, they'll hear the story for the one opening they see of like, okay, so we can do this to move you forward. It's all we do within the PBT Institute is people come in at stage 2 or stage 3, and we just predictably move them to stage 4 and 5 beyond. I mean, that's just it. But if the idea is just to keep that story going, life is waiting. You owe it to yourself to heal.
Yeah. And it seems like when you keep the story going, and we've all done this, but then you build new trauma onto the old trauma, because it's like the story that you're telling yourself, and it makes it harder to get out of it.
Exactly. Because, think about it. You have your story, you're building up your case, then you have confirming evidence, because that's all you're putting out. So that's all you're getting in. And so you have more confirming evidence and more confirming evidence, and your mind always wants to prove you're right. So if you believe this is as good as it's going to get, and life stinks, and this is it, I'm just a magnet for betrayal, well, then of course you would be, right? I mean, think about it. Look, I had a great story. The most important people in my life all betrayed me. If I told that to anybody, I'd get lots of sympathy. But instead, look at my story now. It's like, it's such a better story. We're helping millions of people through all the work that we're doing. And just to close the loop on my own personal experience, rebuilding is always a choice, whether you rebuild yourself and move on. And that's what I did with my family. It just wasn't an option to rebuild with them. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something entirely from the ground up new with the person who hurt you. And that's what I did with my husband. So not long ago, as two completely transformed people, we married each other again. New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids is our bridal party. Betrayal will show you who someone truly is. It also has the opportunity to wake them up to who they temporarily became. And it gives you an opportunity to say, okay, you know what? Absolutely walk away and all of that and heal. It is a very personal healing experience. One of the biggest challenges I see is when someone's betrayed, they're so committed to rebuilding the marriage, but it stunts their healing because that's where all their focus is. And what I found is unless there's that death and destruction of the old, you can't birth the new. You just can't. It's impossible. So that was the end of my marriage. That was the deal breaker. And I was like, all right, here I am. I wasn't counting on this. Now 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business, and now a PhD program. I was like, all right, but here we go. And it was when you take the little bit of energy you have after a betrayal and use it for your own healing, the other person, you can completely outgrow them, right? Because they're just staying where they are. The other thing is they can just decide, I better step up my game to meet the strength of this person, and then they can, and you decide from there. We never know what's going to show up, but it is a beautiful opportunity to do some amazing healing work for yourself.
So how do we know if we're stuck in betrayal? Like, I know that you said sometimes people are 25, 30 years later and they don't realize that they're stuck in it. So what's some indicators that we're stuck in betrayal?
Yeah. So this is classic how I'll see it show up in health and work and relationships. So in relationships, I'll see it in one of 2 ways. The first is a repeat betrayal. The faces change, but it's the same thing. You keep going from friend to friend to friend, boss to boss to boss, partner to partner to partner. Like, what the heck? Is it me? Yes, it is. Not in that it's your fault, in that it's your opportunity. There is a profound lesson needing to be learned, whether it is you are lovable, worthy, deserving, you need better boundaries in place, whatever it is. Until and unless you get that, you'll have opportunities in the form of people to teach you. So like in my case, it was my family. Boundaries were always getting crossed. I never took my needs seriously. Then it happened again, right? It was my husband. And I was like, that's it. And for me to enroll in a PhD program, I had never done anything like that for myself. Nothing close. Changed my whole life, you see? So when you get that lesson and you do something with it, your entire life changes. So a repeat betrayal, clear sign of an unhealed betrayal. The second way we see it in relationships is the big wall goes up. You're like, nope, been there, done that, and no one's getting close to me again. And we think it's coming from a place of strength. It's not. It's coming from fear. Yeah, you're keeping the bad ones out, but you're keeping the good ones out too. We need to learn how to trust again, and you absolutely can. Trust cannot be repaired, but it can be rebuilt. The other way we see it is in health. People can go to the most well-meaning doctors, coaches, healers, therapists to manage a stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease, but at the root of it, very often is an unhealed betrayal. Like, for example, I shared 45% of anybody betrayed has a gut issue. So let's say that person goes to the most amazing gut specialist. If they're not highly skilled in betrayal, they're only getting so far. That's why with our certification program, we're certifying doctors and coaches and healers and therapists so they can take their clients and patients on much deeper transformations. We see it at work too. People want that raise or promotion, they deserve it, but their confidence was shattered. So they don't have the confidence to ask. They're bitter and resentful instead. Or they want to be a team player, collaborative partner, but the person they trusted the most proved untrustworthy. How do they trust that boss, that coworker, that partner? Shows up everywhere.
So how do we help that coworker or that friend that we can see, it's just eating them up inside, or can we help them?
Yeah, well, you tell them about the PBT Institute. That's the first thing. People don't know about the 5 stages. They don't know there's a predictable roadmap for healing. And there is. And, it's just knowing what stage you are in, and then knowing, okay, so here's where I am. I'm in stage 2. I'm in stage 3. What are the proven predictable steps and stages I need to do to just move myself, to stage 4, and then just move myself to stage 5. It's not like there's any magic or mystery to it. It's just, you need to know if life stinks after betrayal, and it will, if it stinks for years and then decades, it's not the betrayal anymore. Now it's you.
So what's the first step? Like, what's the first thing that they could do to start to heal? And I know you talked about the 5 stages, but for somebody who's feeling like totally just like completely stuck, obviously they can come to you, but what's the first step they could take other than that?
Yeah. I mean, you could take the healed or hardened quiz to see to what exactly what stage you're in. And they can just find that at healedorhardenedquiz.com. More importantly though, I would check your willingness to heal, because here's the thing. You may say, well, of course I want to heal, but you know what? I see it all the time. There are people who say, I would do anything to get rid of this pain. And then when it comes to actually doing something that would move them forward, that's different, that's uncomfortable, they don't do it. They don't do it. So we have people say, it's amazing to me, because people will say, I think there's one question that says, on a scale of like 0 to 10, how badly do you want to heal? If I tell you, almost everybody says 10. I've had 60,000 plus people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz. That would mean I have 60,000 people in our community, and we don't. So what I'm saying is, just because someone feels this intense pain, and I know the feeling because I've been there, feels this horrific pain, they don't trust themselves enough to do something to get them out of it. And that, you have to do something different to have a different result. If you everything you've done has gotten you here. So if you're going to get to that next place of healing, you need to do something different, and it can't be done alone. It's too hard.
Yes, agreed. It's like so often we think we got to power through it, just tough it through ourselves and figure it all out. But most people that are successful or like that are healed, they've had other people help them get to where they are today. So I love that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, doing it alone, I mean, that's what landed me in the emergency room. That's no way to go.
Yes. So Debi, I know that we're winding down here, but let's end with a tip to encourage women who are in the arena fighting for the life that they want.
Yeah. I would say, if you're not living in the body you want, with the relationships you want, with the level of abundance in all of the areas that are meaningful to you, stop settling. We strive. I see us striving for like 50%. It's like, if this was a meter of 100, we're like striving for 50. Well, if my partner comes home at the end of the day, it's okay. If my kids aren't in trouble, it's okay. If I can button my pants, it's okay. Like, what is that? What about joy, passion, purpose, living full out? Everything you want is past the 50%. I get it. Listen, if you're struggling with disease or something's going on, 50% sounds wonderful, but that's not where it ends. Once you get there, that's your new beginning. And I see so many people settling. They're like, someone just wrote me the other day, oh, I would love to heal. I'm too old. And I'm thinking to myself, how many people have moved through the, stage 5 who are 10 years older than you? But if someone has it so rooted in their head, they're too old, don't even bother trying, because no one can break through that belief but you.
So good. Dr. Debi, how can we connect with you?
Best thing to do is really find out what stage you're in, and just take the Healed or Hardened quiz, healedorhardenedquiz.com, or just take a look at the PBT Institute, the PBT as in post-betrayal transformation, the PBTinstitute.com.
Dr. Debi, thank you so much. You've been a total badass, and I've enjoyed hearing your story.
Thank you so much.
And with that, we'll end our show. To all the badass women out there staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast, and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass and get the chance to be on a future spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.